Good evening. It's June 20, 2013, just after 5 o'clock, and I call the June 20 special Brattleboro Selectboard meeting to order. Has the meeting been officially warned?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. The meeting's been officially warned. The first item on tonight's agenda is to interview select board candidates. So we have 4 candidates who have submitted letters of intent or letters of interest, those being, let's see, in alphabetical order: Michael Bosworth, Steve Cormier, Ian Keel, and Donna McComber. We provided questions that we would be asking and hoping that everybody could answer. I hope all the candidates received those questions. And I think what we'll do is plan on allocating between 10 and 15 minutes to speak with each candidate so that we have enough time after for any public comments, because our rules of procedure provide for public comments after the interviews but before the meeting where the vote is taken. And I expect we'll just ask the questions across the table for variety, so I'm not the only one asking questions. If there's time after the 5 questions that we circulated have been asked and answered, maybe there'll be room for extra questions. So the first candidate is Michael Bosworth. I hope it's okay that you go first. And if you want to come up to the table, please. Hi, Michael. Thanks for putting in a letter.
Thank you.
So the first question is pretty general. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm a 10-year resident of West Brattleboro, and part of Brattleboro, obviously, where I live with my wife, Naomi, who's a ceramics teacher and potter. And before that, the rest of my life, I lived in Western Massachusetts. Both my parents were public school teachers. My dad is a math teacher for 40 years in South Hadley and Holyoke, Massachusetts. My mother for almost 20 years as an elementary school teacher in Granby, Massachusetts. And I attended the public schools in Granby from 1st through 12th grades. I have college degrees, English literature, Holy Cross College in 1971, a business administration degree from Western New England College in 1978, and a regional planning degree from UMass Amherst in 1993. My work history, largely in information technology, 5 years beginning in a private company, the William E. Wright Company in Massachusetts, followed by 24 years at the University of Massachusetts, after which I started working in the nonprofit world as the director and then business manager of a small nonprofit named the Brick House Community Resource Center down in Turners Falls. I'm now semi-retired. I still work part-time doing the payroll and other business management tasks for a West Brattleboro construction management firm, Ironwood Brand. I'm also working with 3 partners part-time to form a new special purpose education business that's still in the works. So.
Thank you. We'll go this way.
Why do you want to be on the select board?
Select board members are in a position, I think, to help set direction and make decisions. And it could be on a number of topics, particularly on finances, also economic development, energy, town planning, the arts, housing. And I believe my background can be a real asset in this work. I have a strong concern over the town's slim financial resources, I think, as many people do, and its impact on all of us. So as a select board member, you get to play a role with that for sure. And I think I listen well, and I really believe in fairness, in both of which I think are very highly important traits for select board members.
You ready for the next one?
I am, I think.
What experience in public service, private employment, volunteer work, and your personal life prepares you for a position on the select board?
I've spent the last 2 years on the town meeting's finance committee, and that's given me a close knowledge of town as well as school finances. I realize the select board doesn't have purview over the schools, but it's still an important part of the mix. Current employment for a small business, through that and through a past home consulting business I've had, and through the new business I'm starting with some partners, I think it also gives me an appreciation of the challenges of being a small business. And in all three of those instances, we, the different partners and different businesses, have been using the really excellent consulting services of the Small Business Administration at Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. I've been active as a volunteer on renewable energy groups. I'm part of an energy co-op named Co-op Power, and we put the financing together and own a photovoltaic array that's on top of the new cooperative building. I've also been very active with Brattleboro Thermal Utility, which is a Vermont nonprofit, and we've looked into the possibilities, the feasibility of connecting many buildings in Brattleboro to one shared heating plant. We've also helped one private owner in particular to implement a little shared or district heating system for a couple of her buildings. I've also participated in the Home Energy Challenge. That's part of what the Energy Committee of the town has been involved with. My attendance at some town plan sessions, my review of the new town plan, and my planning degree, I think, are very useful background if any new planning and or zoning issues come before the select board. I've also been on the West Brattleboro Association for 8 years, volunteering there, the last 6 of those as the board president. And that has given me a firm belief in the importance of community groups and listening to the community. I've also volunteered once a month in the winter for the last 4 years at the overflow shelter, which certainly is a whole other perspective and useful perspective on our community. I'm a community member of Brattleboro Area Chamber of Commerce, and I've also attended some of the Southeast Vermont Economic Development Strategy sessions.
Michael, thank you for showing up and putting your name in. We'll try not to make these sound too formal. Are there any particular priorities or issues that are leading you to seek this position, or on which you plan to focus if appointed?
Well, I think town finance is a focus. I think that's a focus of all, I think an obvious focus of all select board members, so that's got to be a focus. Also, economic development and other potential revenue development, because the town needs to increase its grand list. It needs to find other revenues because it needs those revenues. Energy is a real interest, given my volunteer work on the renewable energy boards. And town planning and zoning, especially if something rises to the level of the select board, it's also an area I think I bring a focus to.
Do you come to us or believe you represent any particular constituency? And if so, tell us about it.
I actually don't think I represent a particular constituency that's not sort of already represented on the board. I view myself as a generalist, a person who listens to all sides, and a person who tries to understand the context, and I believe that's what select board members should do. But whether the matter is town budget or small business support or renewable energy or the arts or schools or housing, the issues are complex and have multiple perspectives and sometimes no easy answers. So I think select board members need to take in the information, need to listen respectfully, and need to weigh the pros and cons, and then make their best judgments of what's best for the town. So I guess that's not representing any particular constituency, but maybe everyone, hopefully everyone.
So those are the 5 questions we had. Does anybody have any other questions?
I can't think of any right now.
Or is anybody who's in attendance have any questions that they would like to ask? And Michael, if there's anything else you'd like to say?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you, sir.
That's a good answer.
Next in alphabetical order is Steve Cormick. Thanks for coming and putting your name in.
My pleasure.
Why don't you start?
Will you start by telling us about yourself?
Sure. My name is Steve Cormier. I recently moved to Brattleboro back in July of this past year. First, I'd like to thank Barb. I know she's stepping down. I want to thank her for her years of service. And I think that any of us, when we're done a job, would always ask that I make a difference, and I think you did. So thank you. And I also want to thank the other candidates for being here. I'm sure it's easier for you guys because you only got 4 of us. But I wish there were 20 of us here today to give you a better scope of the different people that live in this town. Apathy concerns me, and it's nice that there's 4 of us here, but I wish there were more. I grew up about an hour from here in Fitchburg, Mass, and at the age of 22 decided, and it was the smartest thing I ever did in my life, was to go back to college. I attended Linden State College in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont, graduated with a communication arts and science degree back in 1982. I was heavily involved in college as a resident assistant and head resident for 3 of the 4 years I was there, general manager of the radio station. I'm married to my college sweetheart, Janet Morris Cormier. Matter of fact, we celebrated our 30th anniversary last week. We have 3 sons, Stephen, Chris, and Peter. I'm a 26-year resident of Colchester, Vermont. As I mentioned, I moved here this past July. I didn't really move here because I wanted to live in Brattleboro. To be honest with you, I moved here because I was offered a job and I had an opportunity to help a friend with a business down here. But I've embraced the one and only. I got to tell you that. I've enjoyed my short stay here, and I'm expecting to stay here quite a while. I've been in radio for 31 years, most of that in management. And I'm the station manager right now for WTSA, and I also do the morning show with Tim Johnson right now.
I'll ask the big question. Why do you want to be on the select board?
Because I'm crazy. That's what I've heard from everybody. I know Donna as well. I had a chance to chat with her. I love being in the middle of it. I'm not somebody who likes to hide in the weeds. I like being in the forefront. If you looked at the resume that I sent along, I'm someone who's very active, whether it's on different organization committees or just fundraising. I don't want to get ahead of myself and answer question 3 or 4 at this point, but I love being involved. I have a lot on my plate. I get up every morning at 3:45, but I just seem to have an endless drive to succeed and to make a difference. And that's why, plus I'm new, and I think that some people frown on a new guy being here in Brattleboro, listening to some of the past discussions about political candidates in this town. But I think I'm a breath of fresh air. I see things a little different because I wasn't born here. I wasn't raised here. I've spent a lot of time here over the last 4 years driving back and forth, helping out my friend. Brattleboro is a very unique town, there's no doubt about it, and I think that I can add to bigger and better things for this town as part of the board.
Okay, Steve, here it comes.
Oh.
What experience in public service, private employment, volunteer work, and your personal life prepares you, other than being insane, you for a position on the select board?
I'm a father. I think being a parent prepares you for anything. But, I was a member of a school board, and I can't compare apples to oranges here, but that is not an easy job, being a member of a school board. But I loved every minute of it. And unfortunately, I had to resign when I left Colchester last year. But, I missed 1 meeting during my time as a school board member because my mom was in the hospital. You could ask anybody who was on that board. I was dedicated. I was involved. I asked a lot of questions. I volunteered on hiring committees because we wanted to make sure we were bringing the right people into our school system. Colchester Schools, the high school was #1 when I left. I'm not saying that's because of me, but we had a vision of the people that we wanted to be a part of that. And there's no doubt in my mind that I can transcend from being a school board member to a select board member, especially on the budget front. Because Colchester school budgets were some of the toughest to pass in the state. There were times where they got defeated 2 or 3 times in a year, and you had to find a way, the wiggle room, and where that money was to cut it and make things work, and we were able to do that. I showed up at a caucus meeting one night and became a town rep for District 1, and I have to tell you, as crazy as it sounds, I loved all 13 hours of that town meeting. As crazy as it got.
You are insane.
Yes, I told you, crazy.
That was a long.
I am a board member on the Brattleboro Chamber of Commerce, soon to become an executive board member, taking over the Treasurer's Department. I'm a member of the Elks. I'm a member of the Linden State College and Alumni Council. As I mentioned, Colchester, Vermont School Board member. I'm also on the board of directors for Sannonite and the Little Fenway Hall of Fame. Yes, there is a Little Fenway wiffle ball field up in Chittenden County. As I mentioned, I've also been a member of radio management for, the majority of my time in radio. And I feel that I was because I'm a leader. I'm someone who likes to lead the way. I like to hear what everybody has to say, but at some point, a decision has to be made. And I think that leaders are able to do that, whether people like that decision or not. I participated in a lot of different organizations, Camp Tecumseh, the Ronald McDonald House, Toys for Kids, Burlington Police Department, Queen City Police Foundations, as many fundraisers as the chairman of raising money for kids with cancer, scholarships for teachers, fallen Marines. I just love being involved.
Are there particular priorities or issues that are leading you to seek this position, or that you want to focus on if you're appointed?
Lowering taxes and finding new business to come into this town. I think they're both crucial, and you can't do one without the other. Talking to my son the other day, he made this analogy about Brattleboro, that Brattleboro is a building, and in some ways it's kind of decayed a little bit. And if you're somebody who is looking to move, would you move into that building? If you were a business, would you want to move into that building? I think we need to find ways to lower taxes. I think that has to be a priority. I'm a believer that if a department wants to spend money, find it somewhere else in the department. We don't have money. This town does not have any more money to spend. I am not a homeowner, and I tell you, I came that close to moving out of town because of the tax rate in this town. But I'm here. This is my hometown. I'm going to embrace it, and I want to find a way to lower taxes. And there was a gentleman by the name of Wayne Corbeil, who Mr. Brattleboro, and he found ways to bring business into this town. And I think that is so crucial, that we have to be business friendly and find ways to bring new business into this town, and also to make sure that the people that were here don't want to leave.
My turn for number 4. I think you sort of answered that. Are there any particular priorities or issues that are leading you to seek the position, or on which you plan to focus? In a sense, you just answered that.
You just answered that.
Oh, that's why.
I'll be happy to answer again.
So this is about the constituency. Then do you believe? I have a question about what you just said, so I'll do this and then get to the question I have. Do you believe you represent any particular constituency?
Yeah, I do. I believe I represent taxpayers and business owners.
That was quick.
I'm from the company of less is more, brother.
Go ahead and ask your follow-up questions.
Yeah, I noticed in your letter you talked about getting aggressive and find ways to bring to businesses and increase our tax revenues. I wonder if you have any specific ideas about how to do that.
I think that we need to work with the chamber, to be honest with you. I know I'm a chamber member, but I think that whether it's recruitment, I know they have a slogan here called the one and only Brattleboro. I'm not really sure what that means.
There's no other town named that.
Yeah. But I think it's crucial to find people that come and shop here, come eat here, and come live here. And how do you go about doing that? I have a marketing background. I think we have to market people. And I think we have to find ways to see who's interested in moving. I mean, I know that, across the river here, the tax incentives and the tax breaks are always talked about. But I can tell you, as someone who is looking for a house, it's just as expensive or more expensive to live across the river than to live here. I'm a prime example of somebody you want to live here. I have a great job. I have disposable income. I'm active. We need more people, not necessarily me, but people like me who want to move here. And as I mentioned originally, I didn't move here because of Brattleboro. I moved here because of the job. But I've certainly, I love being here now. And I want to be a bigger part of it. But as far as, do I have a specific answer for you? No, I don't.
Other follow-up questions from anybody on the board? Or from anybody who's in attendance? Spoon. Mr. Agave. Microphone?
Why do you think
Microphone.
Spoon.
Oh, we're live.
Say your name, please.
Spoon Agave, why do you think the taxes are high in this town?
You tell me, you've lived here a long time, I hear it from everybody. And firsthand, trying to find a house in this town, I see with the property taxes. You know, the house I owned up in Colchester was probably $150,000 more than the house I was looking at down here, and my taxes would have been double.
Any other questions? Or
Are you still looking for a house?
Thought I'd throw that
Let's
You
talk.
want to talk?
in. I'll tell you, when the rats jump the ship, they take everything with them.
anything else you want to share with us?
No, thank you for the opportunity.
And thanks for
Thank
putting your name in. Absolutely.
Way to market yourself,
You-
Barb.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Ian, you looking for a house?
We're doing renovations on ours, and if we come in 10 or 20% over budget, we'll be good, right? Hi.
Hey,
Hi, Ian.
Hi.
Tell us about yourself.
I'm a local boy. I was born in Brattleboro Memorial Hospital. I went to school here, graduated Brattleboro Union High School. I hope I'm not a breath of stale air, because Steve said he's a breath of fresh air. I worked for a number of years, sort of moved back to the area about 2002. Worked for a number of years. A lot of people know me because downtown I managed a gone store, saved the corporations from themselves for about 8 years, and then let me do the math. January 2011, I became a stay-at-home dad. We're lucky in my family that my wife's income can provide for us, and I've been doing that. I have two young kids, and I've been trying to grow a business as well. I do freelance video work, and I have a couple clients that have given me some good work and stuff that I'm proud of, and I keep doing that. So that's sort of my life at the moment. Stay-at-home dad and freelance filmmaker. So that's me.
Ian,
Yes,
how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Why the heck do you want to be on the select board?
Well, I wanted to, I do the math, 2008 for some reason I wanted to, and I mounted a vigorous campaign. I got a ton of votes. You remember that year.
I remember that year.
Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton were fighting it out for the Democratic primary,
Yeah.
and there was a ballot issue about Vermont Yankee, and the turnout was huge. But I needed about 300 more votes to get elected. So I ran again. This circle came around, and it seemed like, hey, it could work. Things have balanced out. I could put in the time. Things were changing on the board, as you guys know. It's almost all new faces there. The turnout was kind of disappointing. About 22% of the registered voters came out. And so why do I want to be on the select board? I'd like to serve the town. I'd like to be part of the decision-making process. I was thinking to myself, I think this is segueing into the next question. I was thinking to myself, all the big decisions have already been made, and now you just have to sit around and deal with the consequences of those. But then Barb says she's going to leave town, and it seems to me that a big focus is going to be finding a new town manager. So what was the next question?
I'll read it.
Okay.
I just want to say that Ian and Don and I were all on and you missed a lot of the forums, but at first,
I think the term was all of the forums.
I think I missed all of them.
at one point during that process, I think there were 5 of us that
Six.
didn't show, or 6. Yeah, 6, Spoon as well. I think all of us at some point made a point about the terrific candidates and how
Yeah.
pleased we'd be to work with any of them, and I'm feeling that once
Yeah,
again.
and I would have to say, for the one-year seat, there were 6 candidates, and now there's filling the remainder of Ken Schneck's term. You've actually got 4 candidates for 1 seat, so it's not so bad. You know, you've got a good,
As
you know,
opposed to
and I
not
think,
getting candidates.
and I think who you choose is going to be, you're going to define yourself as a board by who you choose, and so having a larger pool of us to choose from will allow you to more clearly define, you know, who you want.
So, what experience in public service, private employment, volunteer work, and your personal life prepares you for the position of select board?
Most applicable, I hope I pronounced that right, has been that I served on the Brattleboro Community Television Board for, it was about 5 years. It's a few years back, but I was served as president for 3 years before the term limits hit in, and there's some trying times in that organization. And one of the things that we did that I think would be applicable, is that the proper pronunciation? If I do be appointed to the select board, is I took part in, we didn't renew the contract for one executive director, and then gave out a search, started a search, and we did choose an executive director who's still at BCTV, Cora Trowbridge, who I'm very pleased with our choice, and I think that organization is a great organization. It's broadcasting this live. That's most applicable. I have small children, so I think I can adapt and move on my feet because you need to do that. As a parent, being a freelancer, it's you know, you learn other things. So I'd say those are some of the qualities, or rather experience that I have that might help out here serving on a board.
Are there priorities you want to focus on if you're appointed to the select board?
Like I said, I kind of was thinking about it. I'm like, oh, geez, all the big decisions have been made. But I think focusing on getting a new town manager that fits with the town and sort of keeps with the, I mean, I will say it, Barb, I think you've done some great progress. And one of the focuses that I would have, and it came up in some of these forums, how do we replicate the successes we've had? Like the Commonwealth Dairy as an example of bringing a new business to town. You know, what was the secret sauce that made that happen? Can we replicate that? So I would like to focus, I think, a little bit on how do we continue and improve and duplicate the successes we've had. Another example is this community compost, which I signed up for, which is in the voluntary phase right now. I think it's awesome. I think it's excellent. I mean, I can see that I'm reducing the amount of trash that goes to the landfill. If I remember, we ship all our trash out of state because we don't have landfill space. And so making sure that we are, you know, tooting our own horn when it's important, accentuating the positive, I guess. So again, the priorities would be, obviously finances goes without saying, but finding a new town manager, and then also really trying to say how do we duplicate or continue the successes that we already have that we can be proud of.
The big finish.
Yeah.
Do you represent any particular constituency? And if so,
I think during the race for office, I used the line that I think my family's my main constituency. It's humbling to say that my wife is more intelligent than me and actually funnier than me. And if she wasn't so busy and if she liked public speaking, you know, we'd be better off with her on the select board. But she would be an important constituency because she would ensure that I didn't do anything stupid. She would be like, why am I reading this in the paper? Why did you say that? Why would you... What are you thinking?
Ian, it doesn't work like that. Just ask Kathy.
It doesn't work that way.
No.
But also, you know, if you look at the election results, and some people say, oh, they should just pick you because you had the next highest number of votes. And I think if we're realistic, David and Donna and I were basically all within the same sort of statistical, you know, variation there. But I was proud that I did get the most votes for my district. Of any one-year candidate. And I would definitely think that I would represent, I live in the sort of Spruce Cedar Street area, you know, and I think I would sort of represent that neighborhood. You know, the concerns of that neighborhood would perhaps resonate a little bit more with me than perhaps concerns of other neighborhoods. And that's just, I just the reality of it. So.
Any follow-up questions from anybody on board or from anybody who's in attendance? Is there anything else you want to relate to us?
No. Thanks, Barb, for serving the town. That was kind of a shocker because I was like I said, whoa, that's a task for the select board. They're going to have to find a replacement.
Trying to give them something to do.
I hope you forgive me for bringing you fake trash all those years ago.
Oh, God, we never bring it up.
Well, Gene Rinn said that he was fine with it. You know, he arrested me, and then I believe the current chair of the select board. He's the one who chose not to prosecute me. So it's a small town, you know. Just,
Ian, I'm not sure if you're helping yourself right at this point.
you know, if you don't own up to the
You
things
betcha.
that they're going to throw at you.
Hey, you threw it at me, so I was happy.
I threw something at you, John?
Yeah, I was on the board at that point.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
I had a special, and it was fake trash. I want to be
But
clear
it was
on
good
that.
trash.
It was fake trash, and I will say it is interesting to look at how the election results in March came out and who the voters chose for those one-year seats, because they did choose someone who sat on the select board before and someone who you sit on the school board still, right? So people really did value, I think, experience. There's no question about that, you know. And that's how I read the election. That they said, we know David Scholes, you know, he's on the school board. We know John's been on the select board, and so I can see that, you know. And like I say, it was kind of like I did other things. I didn't get elected. I acted in a play for the first time since 4th grade. You know, I did something new. But then here's an opportunity. You can still get on the board. So I'm one of your options. And if nobody has anything to ask me, I'll go sit down.
Thank you, Ian.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
And Donna? You want to start us?
Oh, sure.
Hello.
Hello, Donna. How are you?
I'm good.
Are you? Good.
I'm
Well,
happy to be
tell
in this
then
seat.
everyone about yourself.
All right, will do. Let's see. I am passionate about being alive. I love to learn. I grew up on the Cape with working class parents who were involved in the community. I have worked and spent most of my waking hours in Brattleboro since 1990 at the Women's Freedom Center, formerly the Women's Crisis Center, and have been very involved in this community. I live with my female partner, who's an artist and a woodworker up near Oak Grove School. I feel very blessed to be in this community. I'm a feminist. At heart, I'm a social justice activist, and I believe in really looking at issues of access for people. I adore this community. I think it's not only geographically beautiful, but it is full of people who have appropriate regard and concern for their neighbors and for the community, and I think it has a lot of emotional intelligence. And I had a really, really positive experience running for Select Board the first time. So I am back with interest and curiosity and excitement.
You want to just go down the line here? So why do you want to be on the select board?
I want to be on the Select Board in part because I think that I would bring an energy and an excitement and a devotion that would be helpful. I had the same experience as another candidate mentioned, that when I was standing out collecting signatures in front of the co-op, it was really surprising to me the number of people that said, why would you want to do that? And in some ways, I bring beginner's mind. I think that everybody at some point in time, if they feel passionate about a place that they live, should step up and serve. And so it felt like my time. I'm 53. I've done a lot of really interesting work in my life, and most of that has necessitated that I work really well with an intimate group of people across differences, and that has always been a challenge that I've embraced. And I think that I have a level of humility that's necessary as a public servant, and I also have an emotional intelligence that I try and bring. I listen well. I care about what people think. I'm able to make decisions. hopefully distilling the things that are most important in any given situation. And those are qualities, quite frankly, I feel are essential on any board that has decision-making power.
You sure it's not the pay?
Pretty sure. Pretty sure.
Can you tell us about the experiences in public service, private employment, volunteer work, and your personal life that prepare you for the position on the select board?
Sure, and I wanted to just say really clearly, 20 plus years at the Women's Freedom Center, what has that taught me? Because that has been like the main course of my daily energy. To work on ending violence against women is a huge task, and we cover the entire county, and we do that on a really modest budget. We don't have glossy brochures. We don't go out for fancy meals. We really put our shoulder to the wheel of trying to accomplish something that is difficult and takes staying power and diplomacy. That has prepared me, I think, for the challenge of being on the select board. And then I serve on the state board, the Sexual and Domestic Violence Coalition, which also has a big job. Based in Montpelier, looks at the resources for the entire state and political priorities. I'm on the legislative committee up there. And a couple of years ago, I took this amazing course in Boston. It was called Emerge America, and it really looked at how having more women candidates in positions of power, be they town positions or statewide or national positions, would potentially shift and balance and bring diversity to political endeavors. I was interested in that work, and that had me thinking about, given how I spend each day at this point in my life, what could I do and how could I be of service that would be manageable? And although you all have 4-hour meetings, and I've heard that Ken Schneck was the one who proposed the most adjournments, and I wouldn't see that as my job, being a new select board member, it's a little daunting, and I think I could do it. So here I am. And one other thing I want to say is, in my free time, I work with hospice down in Naples, Florida. I work with parents who have lost children, and I think the heart it takes to sit with people who have lost a child is not, it's sort of not a particular skill that you would think of would be necessary for the select board. But I think part of what it's done is it's helped me to sort of sift priorities. And I feel like if I were to sit with a list of what needs to happen, I could really go to the heart of what the priorities are in any given situation. And so that is part of what I think is important to do. And it's work that I love.
Speaking of priorities, are there any particular priorities or issues that are leading you to seek this position or on which you plan to focus if appointed?
There are no issues that the select board has dealt with in the last several months that don't interest me. I'm imagining that Ken Schneck had some focus areas that you all might be looking to fill, and I imagine that this position comes with a very large binder, which I will be asked to read. I've always been passionate about firefighters and farmers. I think that they rule the world in some important way, sustenance, and so I would like to just say that I'm willing to be plugged in. I also feel so much about the tax situation and the cost of housing and the stress that people are under and the rising costs of food. I'm in touch with lots of business owners who are young and visionary and want to stay here. I think of Equilibrium. I think of the new bakery that's wanting to start up at the end of Main Street near the co-op. And I think about my belief is that we have all of the resources we need to work magic with what we have in this community. But I think it's going to take really being mindful and creative to accomplish some of the things that have to happen. So I'm willing to be plugged in where there's the need.
Other than farmers and firemen, who is your constituency, if you have any?
It's a great question, and I feel like it is not the place of a select board candidate to come in with a constituency. I honestly feel like my responsibility would be to represent this town as best as I possibly can. And that said, you know, being fully transparent, it wouldn't sadden me if other girls and young women and adult women were to look at another female candidate and think, I might want to do that at some point. So while that's not my constituency, I think that there's something fabulous about thinking about a diversity on the board, and I wish to contribute to that. I wish to add to that.
Are there any follow-up questions from anybody on the board? Or from anybody who's in attendance? Or anything that you'd like to add?
I think I've said what I've come to say.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for the opportunity.
Thanks for coming. James?
I like the idea of balancing men with women. Just a thought. It's probably not a new one.
So we've now had our candidate interviews. Our rules of procedure provide the opportunity for public comment on any of the candidates at this meeting, actually before we convene the next meeting to make the appointment. And not knowing how many candidates there were going to be, and not knowing how long these interviews would take, we set these interviews to begin at 5 o'clock, and then the meeting for the appointment to start at 6:30. So if anybody wants to make any comments now, besides the one that James has made, thank you, James, this would be an opportunity to do so. We're also going to have public comment before the meeting, or right at the beginning of the meeting that starts at 6:30, if you want to speak then, or if you want to speak both times. So if anybody wants to speak now, this is an available time. So if anybody wants to do that, the mic is available. And if not, since I see nobody who is in attendance who wants to speak right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that we go into executive session, not to talk about this select board matter, but rather to speak about 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 contract matters, a litigation matter, and a personnel matter, where the board has concluded that premature public knowledge would put the town at a substantial disadvantage. And I will invite the town manager and the assistant town manager, if he's still here, in for most of those, but maybe not for one of them. All those in favor? Well, is there any discussion about that matter? And so we will be back. We'll come in at like 6:25. We'll adjourn this meeting, and then we'll reopen another meeting to have the appointments and public comments if anybody else wants to speak to any of these appointments. So, all those in favor of that motion to go into executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 4-0. Thank you very much.